the second best prize you could get for winning a soccer game. A spot in the World Cup final. On Griezmann, the ensuing corner, swung in, header on Frank, the opening goal! Samuel Umtiti!
The 10th of July 2018 is the day that Samuel Umtiti becomes the hero of his nation. His winner against Belgium in the semi-finals secured fans a spot for the final of the World Cup in Russia, which they went on to win. His name goes through the media like crazy, and he seems to be destined for greatness. After the World Cup though, when everybody thought he was at the height of his career, it was actually the beginning of his shocking downfall. The months after the World Cup turned out to become a never-ending nightmare for him, and he never recovered from that. So what happened to the man that was once one of the most promising centre-backs in the world? This is a story about sacrifice and a man who ruined his entire career with just one horrible decision. To understand how this happened, we have to start at the very beginning of Umtiti's career. His family moved to France when he was just 2 years old, and he later settled in Lyon. He grew up adoring the local club Olympique Lyon and started playing football at age 5. After a few years at his local team, he joined Lyon's academy when he was just 9 years old. In an interview, he once admitted that he was first a striker and only later switched to centre-back. And this turned out to be a great idea as he shined on that position. Through his combination of physicality and technicality, he soon joined Lyon's first team at age 18 and gave his professional debut for Lyon a couple of months later in the Coupe de France. Just a week later, he also featured in the Ligue 1 for the first time, and after that, his rise to one of Europe's most looked after talents began. Still at Lyon, young Umtiti established himself as a starting player the following season. He was a key player in Lyon's triumphs, including winning the French Cup and the French Super Cup. He made the French national team aware of him, and he was called up to the under-20s French national team in 2013, where he won the under-20s World Cup playing almost all games. This first major trophy marked the start for his rise to the top of Europe. He was known for his great physicality as a young player, but also his technical ability and playmaking. On top of that, he also imposed a threat in front of the opponent's goal, scoring 2 goals and assisting 3 in the 2014-15 season alone. So it's no wonder he entered the world stage a few years later with his move to FC Barcelona in the summer of 2016. He was immediately adored by the fans and once again fought his way to a starting player in the first season. This is the point where he was widely recognized as one of Europe's brightest centre-back talents. Because remember, he was only 22 years old at that point. In the following years, he shined alongside Piqué and won 4 trophies with Barca in just 2 years. This earned him an early contract extension at Barca in the summer of 2018, even though his current contract wouldn't expire until 2021. Due to his incredible performances and improvement in these 2 years at Barca, he was called up to the French national team for the World Cup in Russia 2018. While he was at the top of his career and France were favorites to win, this is actually where it all changed for the absolute worst for Umtiti. Umtiti of course decided to join the French national team in Russia, and everything seemed to go fantastically at first. He went on to play all 90 minutes in 6 games, and as we all know, France were crowned world champions in the end. Joining the national team was supposed to be the highlight of his young career and a footballer's biggest accomplishment, but it turned out to be the start of a horrible nightmare for Umtiti. Let me explain. Following the World Cup, he began to develop knee problems that were caused by the high burden of his World Cup matches. So in a way, Umtiti actually sacrificed his whole career for his nation and a World Cup medal. Some of you might say that that's a little exaggerated, but hear me out at first. Umtiti's next months can only be described as the start of one of the saddest and heartbreaking downfalls in football history. After the World Cup, Umtiti came back as a broken player. In September, just 2 months after the World Cup, he injured his knee for the first time, forcing him to skip 14 matches until mid-November. When Barca fans were excited to finally see Umtiti on the pitch again, he injured his knee for a second time just 2 weeks after his initial comeback in November. This time though, things were looking much worse. He was forced to the sidelines for 23 games until mid-February, and this trend didn't stop either. Umtiti went on to miss 75 games in the 3 years after the World Cup in 2018. But of course, as the intelligent viewer you are, you of course wonder, was this just bad luck? And the sad truth is, no. This likely could have been prevented or at least improved. You see, normally when you have these types of knee injuries, you get surgery, which speeds up the recovery immensely. But Umtiti didn't want that. He opted for a natural recovery every time instead. It's still not 100% clear why, but later in his career, Umtiti said this about his choice in the World Cup 2018. I had to work 3 times harder to get back. During the World Cup, I didn't necessarily do what was necessary, or rather, things were done that I should have avoided. Obviously, due to his injuries, his performances were in the decline as well, and he was only a shadow of his former hype. He fell out of the favor of many Barca fans, and especially the Barca managers, who desperately tried to sell him. This wasn't easy though, because remember, they extended his contract. In the end, he moved to a newly promoted Serie A side Lecce in the summer of 2022 on a 1-year loan, which many say officially marked his downfall. After all, Umtiti went from being one of the most hyped centre-back talents at 22 to now playing at a low-tier Serie A side just 6 years later.
Je suis Samuel Umtiti. Allez le LOSC!
After his loan, he was immediately sold to French side Lille, where many thought he might be able to launch a comeback. But so far this season, he only made 6 Ligue A appearances, averaging only 30 minutes played each match. This obviously didn't mark the comeback that many expected or wished from him. Even though his knee problems that haunted him his entire career were now gone, he couldn't regain his old form from Barca and Lyon. Umtiti's story really is a sad one, especially because he really could have become one of the greatest defenders of a generation and maybe even go on to fill the shoes of Puyol and Piqué at Barca. In a 2019 interview, he said this about the 2018 World Cup and his knee injuries. "I have always been a professional, but there are protocols and certain things that you are asked to do even though they aren't necessarily good in the long term. I regret those things a little bit, but it's in the past. I should have done it differently." I think he summed the situation up pretty well there. In the end, nobody knows what would have happened if Umtiti didn't play that World Cup or at least underwent that surgery. To be honest though, I don't think that he will ever have a big comeback as a pro, but let's hope for his sake that I'm wrong. If you enjoy football stories like this one, click on this video about the downfall of Sevilla FC. I would really appreciate your opinion on this type of video, as I'm still fairly new to YouTube. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel, where I post weekly videos about football's most intense stories.